August 2025, coming to you live from northern Israel. And in this episode of the Israel versus Hamas war, the question is, are we looking at more war or a possible path to peace? And as I've mentioned already, at least a couple of times here in YouTube, as well as written about in the Times of Israel, and spoken about with people in Discord and other places, the way forward, in my view, has two options, really. And the way forward currently, the way that the Israeli government is planning it, is to essentially occupy Rafah, the city in Gaza, one of the cities in Gaza that, have seen a lot of fighting and a lot of destruction of buildings. And the plan is to occupy that as well as other areas that the IDF already controls and effectively, eventually occupy all of Gaza. As I've mentioned, I don't think that that's very productive based on the many years of occupation, which did not bear positive fruit for many reasons. One of them being that it is a policy that generally gives cover, political cover, to the people doing resistance, aka terrorism, because they can say, well, we're being occupied, so we have the right to resist. Yeah, you may have the right to resist, but you don't have the right to do terrorism. But they, of course, will say, no, we have the right to do any action. No, you don't actually have the right to do any action. It's clearly defined what resistance can and cannot be. You're not allowed to target civilians. But go tell that to a bunch of jihadi terrorists who are hell-bent on killing every man, woman, and child in Israel, whether they're Jewish or not, by the way, and then also kill every Jew around the world, and also, by the way, kill every Christian, and also, by the way, kill everyone who doesn't see the world their way, or force them to be dhimmis, which are like second-class citizens, or to be slaves. Those are basically the options, right? How they view the world. So that is a really messed up way to view the world. And that is a really messed up group to have to deal with. So the practical reality of occupying such people only foments more fighting. The way to end that fighting, in my view, or at least to tamp it down and let the cooler heads prevail, is to do what so far the Israeli government has refused to do, has failed to do through lack of will or knowledge or what have you, and that is to annex the land that the Israelis already control and which is already depopulated. And the reason for that is because if you annex land, then there is no question that the land that's annexed is part of Israel. What did who write? I don't know. People, when the messages are held, they're usually, I don't know, grotesque, but in this case, it just seems to be just a bunch of emojis. Well, hello to you folks anyway. So the point is, the way forward, the most probable way to end the violence, if you think about it, is to tell the Hamas, you have 24 hours to release all the hostages, or else Israel will begin annexing 2% of the land that we already control in Gaza, which is already depopulated, and we will do that 2% every day. Since there are 50 hostages, we will annex 2% of the depopulated land, okay? Now it's estimated that somewhere around 50 to 70% of the land in Gaza is already controlled by the IDF, and that 50 to 70% of that land is depopulated. So we're talking roughly a quarter to a third of the land in Gaza is already depopulated. And that means that over a period of 50 days, if they don't release all of the hostages, they will lose about 25 to 33% of the land in Gaza. And at the same time, Israel does continue to be in a war with Hamas, and therefore they should probably continue that prosecution of that war during those 50 days. And if at the end of the 50 days, for some bizarre reason, Hamas still has not given up the hostages, then Israel should continue to take 2% of the land that it will be in control of at that point, separately from the initial batch of land that they control, to essentially put the squeeze on Hamas and force them to give up the goods. Why? Because, according to them, the one thing that they fear more than death itself is losing land. Now, we all know they talk a big game, they're full of boastfulness, bravado, fake pride, and fake glory and all that stuff. But they publicly say anyway that it's all about the land. They want to liberate the land, right? They want to liberate Palestine. They want to free Palestine, right? That's always their chanting from the river to the sea and all that garbage. Okay, so put that kryptonite to the test. If Superman is afraid of kryptonite, bring out the kryptonite, right? If evil Superman, in this case, Dark Superman, or whatever you want to call him, Hamas, is afraid of dark kryptonite, bring out the dark kryptonite. If that dark kryptonite happens to be, we will take that land and annex it, which makes it officially part of Israel, governed by Israeli laws, and it happens to be depopulated, which means it was abandoned by the people who used to live there, and it was conquered by the people who took it in the political vacuum during a time of war, when exchanges of land happen frequently, in fact regularly. It should be no surprise to anyone that Israel would do that. On top of that, if you look at Ukraine versus Russia or any other war in history, World War II, World War One, etc., land gets annexed in war by the victor, right? Usually. And the fact that Israel has not annexed the land shows a serious miscalculation by the current policymakers in Israel, in my opinion. It doesn't mean I don't think they're prosecuting the war very well. No, they're prosecuting the war extremely well. The numbers bear that out. But the fact is, they have the opportunity right now to annex the land, and there's nothing anyone can say about it. So if Palestinians refuse to give up the hostages for 50 days, if Hamas refuses to give up the hostages for 50 days, they will be responsible for not just all the horrible things they've already done, and not just the kind of prize that they've achieved by having France and Australia and the UK declare that they will recognize the state of Palestine, right? Which is a point of pride for Hamas at this point. Even if the UK and Australia and France have all said no, Hamas can't be in charge, still they got that declaration from those countries because of what Hamas did, not because of what Fatah did, not because of what the PLO did, because of what Hamas did, because of their terrorism. Well, okay. If they're the party that achieved all those things, they are obviously not going to want to be also the party that causes the Gazans to lose land, and the Palestinians in general to lose more land. Right? That would be the death knell for them at the hands of their own people, and at the hands of Gazans in general who hate them. Because if you take an inch of land from Gaza, the Gazan people will be very upset and will clearly blame it on Hamas for losing that land, especially if you do it at a rate of 2% per day, rather than 20% a day or all at once or 10% a day. Do it at 2%. Let them feel the pain. Slow burn it, right? There's 50 hostages, 2% per day. 50 times 2 is 100, right? So 100% of the land that Israel occupies, that's depopulated at the time that they would announce that, would be annexed within 100 days. I mean, within 50 days. And then whatever other territory is depopulated after that point, again, 2% of that every day until the war ends, or until these people literally are standing shoulder to shoulder like sardines in a tin can. So that's my take on it. I was going to get into the Ukraine-Russia war update as well, about is there going to be more war or path to peace, but I think I'll save that for another video. But when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war, that is the way forward that I see that has the best opportunity to actually quickly reduce the deaths, the fighting, even cease the fighting, and hopefully return the parties to a state where they are not fighting anymore and the hostages are freed. And, we can hopefully begin to build some kind of way forward peacefully after that. So that's my particular take. And in the meantime, by the way, if Hamas does give up all the land, all the hostages, immediately or within the 50-day period, no, I don't think Israel should, just give them back all the land immediately, even if they don't annex it. I think Israel should hold on to it, keep it depopulated, talking about the depopulated areas, and use that as a bargaining chip for achieving a peace status. Don't just give it back up immediately, but don't occupy it, and just control it and use it as a point of leverage. Anyway, that's it for now, folks. I will talk with you later. Cheers.